Well, I believe we now have a quorum, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 5:32. I'll ask Sandra to record the attendance. Article 2 is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. So if you haven't yet had the opportunity to do so, please review the agenda, and then I'd appreciate it if someone could make a motion to approve that agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve
the.
Okay, so
Go
I
ahead,
heard
Grace.
Rick, Steve, and Grace. So just pick one. And will someone second that motion?
I'll
Perhaps
second.
one of the three of you. Thanks very much.
All right,
all in
I'm sorry,
favor?
so who was it?
Oh, Rick and Grace.
Thank
Both.
you. Okay.
So all in favor of that motion? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, moving on to Article 3, approval of the minutes of the April 20th, 2021 meeting. This was included in your agenda packet. So after you've had a chance to review those, I'd appreciate it if someone could make a motion to approve those minutes.
I approve those minutes. I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 20th.
And I will second.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Steve. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, very good. Moving on to Article 4, acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak to non-agenda items. Sandra, do we have anyone in our waiting room?
We do have two people. I noticed one hand is raised.
All right. I'm going to let you deal with the tech issues involved in letting that person speak.
Okay. Lance, did you want to speak now or during the agenda item?
Actually, now would work out better for me because I have an annual report to give later on.
Okay,
That would
this
be
is
great.
Lance,
All right.
Lance Warner from KDL.
Well, hello,
Hi,
everybody.
Lance.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I'm very interested in the subject. I'm Lance Warner, Director of the Kent District Library. Of course, we have our branch there in Cascade. We are a 20 branch system located throughout the county. So I'm here to talk about the bus situation. I just want you to know that we value the bus service that comes by. Both our employees and our patrons use the bus, and we found it to be of great benefit. It's a nice service to have, and it helps us stay green and brings people to the library. And we'd be sad to see it go.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Do you have any other comments about other issues while we have you here?
Nope, I sure appreciate your work. Thank you for your service, and I hope the bus system or service continues on. And again, I look forward to meeting you in person someday.
Lance, I have one
Very
question.
good. We'll
How
have
many
to make it
employees?
happen.
Whoop. Sorry, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
somebody raised a question.
How many employees and how many customers do you think use it?
You know, it depends on the time of year. We tend to get more service, I think, during the winter. I was talking with our regional manager, Vanessa Wallstra, and she says some of the employees use it during the winter more often. It just depends on the day, but I think it'd be fair to say that, you know, a quarter to a third, depending on what the weather's like, what's going on. And with our customers, we hear anecdotes, but I don't have an exact number for you.
And part of the supplement to our agenda packet was an email from Vanessa that went into a little bit more detail about that. And she said that there's currently one staff person who uses the bus to get to and from work, but they've had multiple staff members use it in the past, and they anticipate summer interns will likely use it as they have in the past.
Yeah, for sure, the interns. And any teen help that we get that might not be in area, that's another possibility as well.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate you taking the time to share them with us.
Yeah, God bless you all. Have a great night, and thank you for your service.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too.
Sandra, anyone else in the waiting room with a hand raised?
No other hands raised.
All right, then we will rather seamlessly move on to Article 5, which is a discussion and consideration of the rapid bus contract. So are we going to pivot to you, Sandra, or to Ben on this?
I can go through my memo real quick if you'd like, and then obviously
think
we
that-
have Ben and Nick here to answer questions as well. So as you're aware, at the April 20th DDA meeting, the board did approve the short-term contract with the Rapid. And that contract was for bus service beginning May 15th of this year, and it runs through September 30 of 2021. At the May meeting, so tonight, the DDA board will be considering the proposed long-term contract with the Rapid. And that is for service beginning October 1 of 2021 through September 30 of 2022. And again, just to reiterate, the Township Board at their March meeting said that if this service is to continue, the DDA must fund 100% of the 28th Street route. So there's a lot of information in your packet. I know it was big. There was some new information, new ridership information for the first quarter 2021. There were some updated emails from businesses throughout the district. And then Ben provided a DDA fund forecast for us as well. And then there was a lot of information that was also included in the March and April packets. So tonight, what we're looking for is a discussion and a potential decision on that long-term contract for the Rapid. As I mentioned, Nick is here tonight from the Rapid for questions, and Ben is here as well. And the Rapid did initially ask for a decision by June 1 of this year. However, representatives from the Rapid advised that they can allow the DDA to provide that decision at the June 15th DDA meeting, or just following that June 15th DDA meeting, if we need additional time to evaluate and review information. So.
Hey, Sandra, before we get too far into the discussion, I know Nick has some information about some nuances with the contract for next year and kind of how the Rapid board is viewing this revenue service model. Nick, could you just maybe chime in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. As Sandra had indicated, moving into that revenue hour service, which we presented to you recently, also kind of came with an asterisk that we reviewed our minutes of our board meeting, and Mayor Bliss from the city of Grand Rapids amended that motion to entertain this contract for 1 year from the start of this revenue hour service relationship. So I know that we had a contract in front of you from October 1, 2021 through the end of September of 2022. We're going to have to revise that date. And it will be from October 1 of 2021 through, I think it's the beginning of May 9, something like that. I want to say, I can get the specifics on that, but for a 1 year pilot for us to fully evaluate and monitor, what that impact is now that we're kind of sharing that cost for that service into Cascade. So that was one of those provisions that the Rapid board approved moving forward.
And Nick, as you guys are doing that evaluation, I know you had mentioned doing, surveys and cost benefit analysis. Is there a way for us to partner on that? Because
Yeah.
I'm sure this board is going to want to, collect not only the information that you're interested in, but possibly some information that we might be interested in as well. And it seems like if we could partner together, that would just arm the DDA with even more data to make that decision again.
Absolutely. We can develop a framework for what kind of data and how we'll evaluate that. I think, it's in everybody's best interest, and we want to be as transparent and forthright with you all as far as what this data, what's contained in these data sets, so that you can make as much of an informed decision as you need to, as well as from our end as well. So again, since we're, essentially splitting the cost more so than we were obviously before, when you were funding the entirety of that vehicle that's attached to that route into Cascade. That way we'll all have that much better of an understanding, and we'll be able to, configure some sort of pattern in which we share all of this information, whether it be monthly. I know we're supplying you with quarterly information as well, but don't see any problem with however you would like to see it as well, Ben. I mean, we're all happy to, provide you whatever you need for your decisions as well.
Great, thank you.
So I understand then that you guys will, that Nick, you guys will generate a revised proposed contract and
Yes.
forward that on to Sandra, to Ben for consideration. And then what will probably need to happen is we'll tee it up at our next DDA meeting so that we can review it and approve it, after we've put eyes on it.
Yep.
I think that though, while we have you here, there may be other questions that board members have about the information that we've included in the packet. So I'd encourage people, if they have questions or if there's additional information that they would like to see as we make that decision at next month's meeting, let's talk to Nick about it right now so that we can have a full set of facts when we make that decision.
Okay, I do have a comment then. I know that Grace had brought it up at the last, as I was reading through the minutes from the last meeting. And it was mentioned in previous meetings too. Just taking a look at what the potential bus route could be, in the sense of, can it just go to Walmart and then turn around, and how much would that save the DDA? Here in the library today, it sounds like they get usage, but looking at the feedback that Sandra provided in the packet, there's not many businesses, again, past kind of like the hotels going into the village that actually use the bus that much to be able to substantiate it. So that would be one piece. The second thing, as I'm looking at some of the data you provided from the first quarter and the average boarding, the greatest amount of people that board, and I'm assuming this is an average, is about 7 at 4 o'clock. Is there, does it make sense from a cost perspective to have a smaller bus than use one of the larger buses? And if it's going just from, I don't know where the main hub is in terms of, does this bus like pick up folks from the mall, the Woodland Mall, and then bring them down, and maybe it's a smaller bus that's just called Cascade Connection, and it just goes out to Cascade and comes back, and that's the dropping off point to where people then are going to pick up the buses to head out into the city or wherever else they may need to go. So it's kind of like a mini hub that you have downtown. Again, just trying to think outside the box here for different thoughts. I mean, I even went to the thought process of, does Cascade, does it make sense from a cost perspective for the DDA to even, do we buy a bus and hire somebody to pick up people from that same spot at the Woodland Mall to bring them out to Cascade? But there's, of course, many more logistical things that go into that. But so I throw those things to you, Nick, those two questions in terms of a smaller vehicle and a shorter route.
Sure. No, good questions. Thanks for bringing that up. First, so the smaller vehicle, we're currently exploring on-demand service in Kentwood and Walker, which we're going to be implementing at the beginning of the new year with those smaller transit vans with on-demand mobile, technologies. The cost per hour of a smaller vehicle to our standard 40-foot vehicles, it's a very nominally insignificant delta. So, right, it's not, it's the largely, and I think I shared with the DDA staff the pie chart that demonstrates that cost per hour largely is with the cost of the operator. And so there, in addition to not having the available fleet right now to dispatch smaller vehicles, we know that largely it's the optics of what a smaller vehicle feels like in more spread out sort of outside of the city core. But the actual space of the vehicle, the capacity, has a very insignificant impact on what that cost per hour is. But to your point, I mean, we're always willing to explore further to see once if sort of a long-term phased approach, if that's something that we'd find cost effective. As you know, the points you mentioned, there are other logistical considerations in terms of maintenance, the capital side of things and all that. As far as the shortening of the route, now what I do know is that in looking at some back of the napkin math, and I had mentioned to Sandra and Ben as well, staff will have fully baked out arithmetic as far as cost for some of these possibilities by the end of this week that we'll be happy to share so that you're better informed in the June meeting. That being said, what we found was that now that we're offering that revenue hour model, and we're going from the township line all the way to the library and back, by shortening that means that while that's a reduction in cost for Cascade, as you've identified, a majority of the ridership is from Walmart West, that means the rest of that cost is bared by the Rapid, which is outside of our 6-city service area. That being said, shortening the route to Walmart would mean that the Rapid would be paying for more of that service than Cascade Township DDA would be. So again, that's sort of outside of our organizational policy to provide a level of service that we're subsidizing that isn't in our 6-city service area. Because of the nature of kind of the mechanics of how these routes work with the distance from the Meijer and Walmart from the township line, where we have to operationally consider where we would turn around for that 40-foot vehicle and so on. So the options that we can entertain with you are 3. So right now we have the current revenue hour model all the way to the Cascade and back. We can reduce weekday evening service. So we can go right now, it's 30 minutes all day. We can go 30 minutes until 6 p.m. And then we could do a 60-minute service after that for the rest of the evening until 10:30 at night. Number 2, we could do the reduced evening, and on top of that, reduce Saturday service so to that 60-minute all day. And then option 4 is reduce weekday evening, reduce that Saturday, and as well as have no Sunday on service. So again, back of the napkin, and we'll flush out all the math. That first option is about between a 10 to 15% cost savings. The second option is approximately like a 14 to 17% cost savings from the base, what we're doing right now. And then that third option, which is reduced evening, reduced Saturday, and no Sunday, I'd guess anywhere between 20 to 25% reduction of what this arrangement that we have in front of us right now. So those are the 3 options that we can pull back a little bit more that doesn't sort of reach that threshold of organizational policy. I know I kind of threw a lot at you, but.
How do you can you please explain how we're charged, like based on this revenue model, how they work out the numbers? I don't understand why it's costing you guys money by shortening our route. I don't, or how there's even an additional cost. I don't understand that.
Sure. So if we think of it visually, if we think of that line that your previous contract previously the Route 28 ended here. You wanted service into Cascade Township. So we had to add a vehicle to the entirety of Route 28 to sort of expand that rubber band. By doing that additional cost of operating that vehicle was then billed to Cascade Township. Now, as you're aware, from the end of Ackwest to Patterson, was a distance that was in the 6 cities. And so previously Cascade was paying for that service from Acwest to Patterson. And so by reducing that commitment to revenue hours only, that means that when the vehicle is moving on the street in Cascade Township only, that's what we're billing you for. So by going all the way to the end of the line, when the vehicle is sitting, which is called recovery time or layover time. So at the end of every line, the bus waits 5-10 minutes until it resumes its trip back to keep that incremental spread of every 30 minutes and to stay on time. You're not being billed for that because that's not considered revenue hours. So by reducing that, as we have it now, by reducing that further to Walmart, we can either choose, if we entertain this further, if we stop revenue billing at Walmart, that means we still, with that extra vehicle that we put out there, have enough time to we're either going to sit at Walmart for 25 minutes, or we can continue and do the route all the way to Cascade as we're doing now, but we would not bill Cascade for that. You kind of see where I'm going with that? I know it's tough to kind of visually describe that, but you're basically in a revenue hour model, you're only being billed for the hours, the time that the bus is moving. If we shorten the distance of what the geography that vehicle is covering, you're billed for that smaller geography, which would just be to Walmart. But now the Rapid is paying for all of that. We're either paying for service out to the Cascade Road, or we're paying for every trip to sit at Walmart for 20 minutes, which is not cost efficient for us. And then that's why we would be then paying more than Cascade is paying for that vehicle to be out there.
And so you're saying just to stay on that schedule, that's the only reason?
Yeah.
It really has nothing to do with the distance, but just to say that every half hour, we should be at X stop. And so
Correct.
the bus has to sit someplace, either it's at the end of 28th Street or it's in the Walmart parking lot,
Right.
but it's still going to sit there, and the cost still has to be there. So the times of the pickups can't change based
Right.
on us shortening the route.
Yeah.
How come those can't change?
Because when we add a vehicle out to adding that to the route, consider like a length of string. Before, you were paying for this entire length of string. Revenue hours means that now we've reduced that. So you're essentially paying for 2/3 now of this string, because you're only paying about 2/3 of that vehicle that we added to that route is in Cascade Township moving along the street. So by reducing the amount of revenue hours, it's saying we don't want to pay from Walmart to Cascade. We just want to pay up to Walmart. All of a sudden, the color of that string from Walmart, whether it sits at Walmart or all the way to Cascade, is now in the Rapid.
And you can't alter the time schedule at all to reflect what the current route is?
No, that's where
Contract periods?
the mechanics of this arithmetic is tricky when it comes to route planning, because unless we transitioned into some sort of paradigm where every other trip, one trip was 10 minutes and then 25 minutes, and then we didn't have this incremental scheduling, which is why it's so effective in our regional construct of our system requires, that incrementally consistent pattern, as all vehicles kind of come into Central Station at the same time, sit there for 5-10 minutes so folks can transfer and then come back out. I see what you're saying. If you take the entirety of the route, all of these strings, can you just shift all of those strings to accommodate just stopping at Walmart? And that's where the mechanics of the alignment, the lines on a map, don't add up and don't allow us to do that. Now, this is something we're certainly willing to explore. If any alignments change significantly, let's say in Granville, where something opens up, if Georgetown Township opens up and says, we'd like you to serve the Georgetown Mire, which is another conversation, that could shift that string that might be able to accommodate this Walmart suggestion. But as of right now, that is not something that we're able to consider in this short term.
Now,
I
this
completely
Rapid has,
understand your rationale, though.
the Rapid has a route on 30th and 36th Street. Does Cascade Township pay for that?
Yes.
And is there a possibility of coordinating the two into one bus line?
Yeah, it's a good question. We looked at that. Part of that problem is then we would have to sacrifice some geography where that Route 5 currently is going to be able to deviate any resource to accommodate both of those. So it'd be that trade-off. So by acknowledging the advantage that you're trying to find by potentially marrying those two, there would be a loss where there's current ridership demand within the 6 cities that have been, established as part of the, travel demand modeling that would be required. But it's a great question, though.
Hey, Rick, just another comment on that too. So the 33rd, 36th route, the Route 5, isn't a full service route. So that route only makes 15 trips a day, and it's based around the shift changes at those businesses.
Yep.
So that would be a complication as well.
And of course,
It would be very interesting. Yeah, right. It would be very interesting to see these options fleshed out. I mean, my initial reaction to the 3 options that you described were that eliminating Sunday would not be workable for retaining the bus because there's ridership on those days. And if those people are taking the bus to work on Sunday, and we know that people work on Sunday, then we're not helping them. But the other 2 options that talk about spacing out the length of time, I think that's something for us to take a look at.
I'm in addition to that, I'm also asking our special services manager to so that we all can understand the implications of the paratransit demand. Because that this cost also buys you paratransit access 3/4 of a mile buffer, around this alignment. So we just want to know for both of us, if we start thinking about entertaining reduction of weekday evening or Saturday or Sunday, how are we impacting folks with special needs, that rely on that as for their shopping in the evenings or on Saturdays and Sundays? So again, it's fully your decision. We just want to make sure you're armed with the correct information to make as much of an informed decision as you can.
Hey, Nick, speaking of the special needs, we contract with Hope Network at the town. We have a separate contract with Ben every year that we currently have with Hope Network. And then that was why the YMCA route off Burton was established, right? And then the Rapid unilaterally cut that and just did 28th Street because of a lack of use at that particular stop.
I don't know. I'd have to, and I chat with my colleagues and Ben as far as that determination to no longer serve Cascade.
No,
So-
the YMCA, the Burton route.
Right, the YMCA on Burton and
Yeah, so the problem with the YMCA is that there aren't people getting off from the line haul route at the YMCA. But the benefit is that because the YMCA is still within the 3/4 mile radius of the line haul route going down 28th Street, all the paratransit riders can still get to the YMCA. So while the direct route doesn't go there anymore, the paratransit can still drop people off at the front door, which is the most used service there.
Ben, can you elaborate a little bit about the interplay between the Hope Network contract and the paratransport that Grace mentioned?
Yeah, yep,
It's
absolutely.
complicated, I
So
know.
prior to the Rapid coming down 28th Street, anybody that needed to use the paratransit service did it through Hope Network. So that was available. That's available to all the residents in the township. When the 28th Street route came into the township, what we did is basically bifurcate those riders. So anybody that qualified for Go Bus ridership, living within 3/4 of a mile of the line haul route, we required them to take the Go Bus because that's not an additional cost to anybody. So for everybody that, for everybody that didn't have access to the Go Bus, they continued to use Hope Network. Now there's a couple caveats in there because the paratransit service for the Go Bus only goes to places that are in the service area. So we had some residents that were in the 3/4 mile route of the Go Bus that wanted to go someplace that the Go Bus transit didn't go to. So if the Go Bus transit tells a resident that they can't take them there, we then allow them to use the Hope Network. So if we decided to go with a reduction in the hours and there was an effect on the paratransit ridership, they would just then pivot to the Hope Network bus instead of the Go bus route. And there'd be more of a per ridership cost to the township on that. But we might be able to do a cost benefit analysis to see how that weighs out.
I think it would be helpful to see for our next meeting, in addition to the potential ramifications of changing the frequency or the location of stops, to provide a comparison of the costs of GoBus versus Hope Network. And I know it's something that you shared a few years ago, Ben, but seeing the dollars if someone were to use Hope Network as opposed to the GoBus, so that we can actually look at something concrete. I think that would be helpful. And I apologize if it's in the packet and I've missed it.
It's not in the packet at this point because it's changed significantly over the past couple of years. So I'll have to actually rework all of those numbers. The Hope Network has actually the Hope Network's become a little bit cheaper for the township, as long as the money's there. So we have access to a bigger pool of money, but the money has the potential to run out. So, but I can do that analysis and get you the information by the next meeting.
Why the potential to run out, Ben?
So what happened was, up until 2 years ago, essentially Cascade Township got a CDBG allocation each year of around $7,200. And what we were able to do is we were able to use that $7,200 until it ran out. And then the township paid for all of the rides after that at $18 a ride, around $18 a ride. What the county ended up doing is, instead of providing all of these individual allocations to each one of these jurisdictions, they said there's $130,000 and everybody gets to use the pool until the money's gone, and then you have to figure out something. So Cascade Township benefited that more than anybody because we had typically $60,000 to $70,000 a year worth of ridership. What we haven't seen play out is if that money runs out at the end, because the beginning of that year involved the pandemic when there was a lot less ridership. So we don't know how that played out. But when we used to budget $70,000 to $75,000 a year for the Hope Network, we're down to budgeting $20,000 to $25,000 a year right now.
But so that would be at a township level decision. We could always, we have the funds.
Yeah, yep, exactly. So again, if you're able to save, say $50,000 on the line haul route, but you have to pay $20,000 in additional paratransit costs, there's still a savings of $30,000 there. So it all comes down to a cost benefit analysis.
Thank you.
Right. Other questions
Nick?
for Nick or for Ben or for Kendra?
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Rick.
Go ahead, Rick, and then I'll follow you.
Okay. Nick, looking at the data that was given to us, when you talk about riderships, that is counting a person getting on and then also getting off. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we look at activities, but we can look at it both ways. Yeah, but yes, we look at on and off.
And I know, so basically, when they have the boardings on all days on the current information, 67.8 people are getting on a daily basis. Now, I recognize not everybody gets on and gets off, because let's say somebody gets a ride home or whatever. But realistically, right now, probably we're serving about 80 people a day, if you include most of them getting on and getting off. So that is one thing. The other thing is, could you explain why from 2018 to 2019, there was a 25% decrease in ridership? And I know in 2020, we have the pandemic, so that's an odd year.
Yeah.
But there was a decrease in ridership from 2018 to 2019 of 25%. And that somewhat concerns me. Is this going to be a trend?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that information. That's definitely something that we've got information on that I can look up and we can see what sort of, internal changes or externalities. I mean, there's, a number of factors that could have contributed to that, but that is something that I'd be able to find out and hypothesize on at least.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a note of that.
Hey, Nick, I can offer some anecdotal information on that. So from 2019 or 2018 to 2019, we had two big, for lack of a better word, data centers or telephone answering centers that closed. We had Teleperformance, who was a big user of the bus. And then we had another one as well that closed in succession within 6 months of each other. So a lot of, absent of all the other things that are going on system wide, a lot of that local drop in ridership, I put on the back of those two businesses closing.
No, thanks, Ben. That's
Nick,
it.
I did have a question about ridership for you, Nick, given the new data that we have for 2021. Really in 2020, we saw the huge drop in ridership in second quarter that was certainly expected. And then third quarter and fourth quarter seemed to climb up again. And then we had a drop in first quarter 2021. Did you guys see system-wide drops in that first quarter of 2021 because the kind of the state shutting down again, or is that specific to Cascade?
Yep, no, that's kind of all across the board. And we keep our eye on peer comparisons, peer agencies with similar, characteristics from our region too. And it's, that seeing that graph, it's just, we're average system-wide, route-wise as well. But yeah, no, we've seen that all across the board too. And I think for us, unemployment plays a big factor into that we're still not seeing folks get back to work. Obviously, I think we're all aware of that, but a few other factors as well. So, but yeah, that's a good question.
Scott, you had a question?
Yeah, well, more along a comment. I think as a DDA right now, we're commenting on the here and now. I think a core question we need to ask ourselves as a DDA is our long-term vision. I think there is a reason there's a fall off of people riding past, say, Walmart, because we haven't necessarily given others a reason to ride on further down. And what I mean by that is we have a lot of vacant properties or vacancies from Walmart all the way down. We've had a number of businesses come in, but if, say, we aggressively as a DDA and Township are looking to attract further restaurants, further retail properties, further companies who are going to set up shop in the township, then this bus service plays into that and the type of groups that we're trying to attract. But if we look at where Family Fare, where the new Starbucks is at, what have you, we have a lot of vacancies. We also have at Fox Subaru that's expanding, but we have a lot of vacancies as you go further on down east, right? So I think we need to kind of start to take a look at that. Is if we are aggressive to see further development, then there's certain decisions we need to look at with a long range with the bus service. And do we, in the interim, instead of reducing the route, which sounds like it's less of an issue, we look at some of the hours and what have you. We play with reducing, the breadth of service within the time frame, and we look at stopgaps like Hope Network to kind of fill in to make sure that we're still serving our community's needs. But I think there's a lot of opportunity if we as a DDA board and a township say that, hey, we're okay with where things are at, then that kind of says, well, the service is going to probably be the same as it is, as it was pre-pandemic. But we have lost businesses. We have some work to do if we want to prioritize that.
I think
So
at large,
more of a comment than a question.
I have a comment too. Like, what is the overall purpose and goal of the DDA? Cascade's growing. There's no doubt growing. And I know businesses, because of COVID, there's a that shopping center area is not doing well. It hasn't been doing well for years, according to people who have been around a long time. It's always been it was a dud. But what's the purpose of the DDA? What is our goals? I don't think our goal is to attract business, but make it necessarily like the growth is there. But I would say it's more to beautify, make it more follow more of the master plan visually. So, and it's kind of ironic that DDAs essentially, like, DDAs are created in part because you had the big box stores, Walmarts, Myers, that kind of stuff that just sucked dry the downtowns, hence downtown development authorities. So it's kind of funny that now we're supplementing largely the Walmarts and Myers with our DDA funds. I'm not saying that I think there's an important population serving this important population, but I also, man, the cost benefit analysis is hard to swallow, I think.
No, I get, Grace, but I guess I'm the newbie on the DDA, but I look at what our core objectives are is halt property value deterioration and increase property tax valuation when possible. Eliminate the causes of deterioration
how do
to
we
promote
do that?
economic growth. Yeah. Well, and it comes down to questions of, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong, further businesses to locate here and what type of businesses we're trying to attract. Well, how do we promote those people attracting those businesses, and how do we support their economic growth? And that's kind of how I look at it. If we have a lot of restaurants and hotels and you have a labor pool to keep them going, then the bus service plays into that if we're attracting more of that. If we're attracting large corporations to set up their headquarters, and I'm not saying we are, that may play into, that's less of a need for, say, a bus service. And I think it's, again, we're looking at dollars and cents today, albeit important, but I think it's a further question to take a step back of what are we ultimately trying to do with the master plan, as you mentioned, and how that ties back into the bus service. And with the overall vision, and how that's going to help us with those 3 points that I shared to support those objectives.
I think it's frustrating that such an expensive cost is put on the shoulders squarely of the DDA. And when it's an important service, but I just think alternatives are.
Well, I think that we're open to. I heard Nick comment on some potential alternatives, not only to the service, but in changing to possibly offer some on-demand options to other communities. And we'd talked about that as a DDA in the past. So I remember that we won't be making a decision that will be in effect now and then run till the end of time. We'll be able to make decisions about, future tweaks, but we, to be frank, don't have that many other workable options that we could start with in September. I haven't seen or heard of a workable plan that could replace the bus service that we could just launch in lieu of what we have currently. That's not to say we shouldn't consider it in the future.
It's like a catch-22, because as long as we're doing this, what's the incentive? I mean, there's only so many hours in the day. The bus service has been talking about the alternatives, but we haven't seen anything. It'll just be nice one day when it doesn't. It's kind of ironic that we're saying I
personally, go ahead.
Well, I just think it's the irony in that when you actually, it's an important service and we need to have transportation. I agree. But the irony is the DDA funds it's an incredibly expensive service for what we are actually, for our return. And it's just kind of ironic that the biggest benefactors are Walmart and Meijer when we're the DDA. So it's like.
But Grace, I would push back.
They would probably argue that, given that we're funded with tax increment financing, they would probably argue that, plenty of their money is going into funding our DDA, so they should indeed also reap some of the benefit of that. And I disagree that the bus line is just going to be. I disagree with the contention that the bus is just going to be benefiting them. I mean, we've received comments from a variety of businesses.
I'm not saying it's just. I'm not saying it's just, it's all on a sliding scale. It's all proportion. It's all cost benefit. I'm not saying just at all. I'm not
Sure,
saying that.
Sure.
And Walmart and Meyer look out for their bottom line. That's what they're driven by.
Well,
And we don't have quite that luxury. It's just it just seems, I
No,
guess ultimately where
And-
do we
and
want
the
to put our
decision-
money?
That's very correct. And the decision that we need to ultimately make as a DDA is this bus service something that serves our DDA businesses? Is it something that helps to promote economic vitality and we're providing support for these businesses, both existing and to attract other businesses? I mean, that's the analysis. And
Well,
and
no,
when we're
Jennifer,
comparing the numbers and we're comparing, the cost benefit, I think that is the lens we need to use when we're looking
Yeah,
at
but
these things.
it's not that simple because obviously the answers to both of those are yes. I don't disagree. So the issue is the cost. Is this the right is the cost? Does the benefit justify the cost? Because there are lots of ways we can do those, lots of other ways we can do those, accomplish those purposes. It's not just through a bus system. So yes to those questions, but ultimately cost benefit. And I know it's important service. It's just hard to stomach such a huge cost.
To be frank, we have the money to do it. I've looked at the numbers. We've got the money to do it. The money that we've allocated for other projects isn't going to be used because those projects are now being stalled while the master plan is being pursued. I don't know what else we would be doing with this money in the short term. And this is certainly a justifiable purpose for using this. So it seems to me to be a more clear answer than it might be in a year where we have a lot of competing projects and we can't afford to fund them all and we need to make decisions about what we're going to allocate. We may be having this conversation next year about the 2022-2023 contract, and it would be an entirely different analysis because of things that are going on. But looking at where we are now and for that service period, I think that the costs really doesn't even come close to approaching the benefit. The benefit really does shine beyond the cost that we're paying for this.
Oh, see, I disagree.
Given the context.
I'll still vote for it, but I don't think that cost, I don't reach the same conclusion. Look at our little downtown area potentially with that the Chowhound area where you've got 28th and Cascade. So much cool stuff. I mean, the Chowhound section of it is dying. That guy's been trying to sell it for a long time. That's an area, I mean,
it's been on our agenda many times there's only so much that we can do because a lot of that is private property. And I
know, that's what I'm talking about. First of all, we only have so many skills, right? But there are consultants that do really cool things. Michelle Kalela has a huge background of just private public partnerships where we can get very creative. And we don't have to just say, oh, we're a public body, we can't do it. We could buy that. You could buy that shopping center section for less than $1 million and then do this unique partnerships. There's so much that we can do. And all I hear about is this stalled library plan. There's so much exciting things that can be done.
Well, we look forward to hearing some of those ideas because I'm not aware that they're on the table.
Strategic plan, Ben and I met with the people starting the strategic plan. So hopefully that'll give some guidance. All I've heard about is the library space that we don't even have enough money to do and
I know that a lot of time and effort was put into discussing it, but again, it's not on the table currently because the project.
But if it's but it's in a very expensive project, you don't do something just because we have a lot of time and effort into it. It seems like.
No, I agree. I mean, and we're diverting from the agenda here to debate a project that isn't something that we're currently
it's about the overall purpose, goal, and where money is spent at the DDA level.
So to that point, the overall purpose and goal, because both the master plan and the strategic plan have been brought up, what's the timeline for the strategic plan? That would be nice to know what, to kind of set some expectation for not just us, but even some of the other boards in understanding what those longer term goals are. So what is the timeline for the strategic plan?
So postcards will be mailed out to all residents. Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, like first week in June or so, we'll get, or and within the 2 weeks, then we'll get the responses back and have a couple community forum meetings in July, maybe August, if we have to push it out that far. And then we'll schedule meetings to go over that analysis with, and to reach out to the DDA, the different boards and committees.
So is there a
So what's
a timeline that says the strategic plan is targeted to be done by a certain date?
Ben,
So we had-
yes, but Ben will answer it better.
Yeah, so we had our kickoff meeting today, and that's exactly one of the things that we asked them for was as a timeline, how it would be finished. The proposal calls for a 4-month time frame, so I would expect it to be done within 4 months. Also note that there is an input session in the proposal specifically for the DDA and the Planning Commission. So at an upcoming, either we'll invite the DDA to an upcoming Planning Commission meeting, or we'll invite the Planning Commission up to an upcoming DDA meeting, but there'll be opportunity for those people to get together and have specific input on the goals and objectives of those boards, and to hear some of the survey information that we got back from the residents before that input session happens. So
Ben?
the DDA will be integrally involved in the process, and we should have a timeline coming up within the next week and a half.
Hey, Ben, there's also a targeted questionnaire, or we're reaching out directly to business, or the strategic plan consultants are reaching out to business owners also, right?
Yeah, yep. So there's actually 6 sessions planned. So one specifically for residents, one specifically for businesses, one for the DDA and Planning Commission, one for the Township Board. There's a couple of others in there as well that I'm forgetting right now, but there's 6 targeted in-person input sessions, in addition to a initial evaluation survey, which we're going to send out just to try to get broad-based feedback from our residents about, what are your hopes and aspirations for the township on a very, 500-foot level. And then once that information's come back, it's digested, all the public input sessions happen. There'll be another survey that goes out that says, based on all this input, this is kind of what we see as the strategic goals and direction for the township. Did we get it right, or did we get it wrong? And then we'll be able to analyze the information that we get back from that survey as well.
And
So
then,
Ben, do I understand that 4-month period to be from today to, the broadcast of the final report after all this input and back and forth? Or is that is that 4-month period a shorter subset of a longer process?
No, I would say the 4-month period is June, July, August, and September.
But so at the end of September, we'll have a signed, sealed, here's
June, July. June,
Right,
July,
right.
August, and September. So I'd anticipate by the last board meeting in September that the Township Board will be considering a final strategic plan to adopt.
That's aggressive. Okay. Cool. Any other
Wait, so
questions?
Michelle, is that a pretty good time frame?
well, I don't know whether it's good or bad. I just was wondering what we were looking at so that it can help us with some of these, sort of smaller but still large commitments that we would like or we want to consider to make. And then I guess my other question is, so once the strategic plan is crafted, then is the master plan that was done a few years ago being revisited to basically determine if there are parts of that master plan, or maybe the whole thing, that basically fits in with the strategic plan? Because I think Scott makes a good point in that if we're, there are things that are trying to be done, and understanding that we can make decisions going forward based on all of the data that we get in terms of ridership and things like that. How does that component piece fit in with all of that? I mean, these are all moving parts, and hopefully we can get to the point where they all fit in to make this really great, puzzle image that everybody can enjoy. But I think it's all important. I think it's easy to make decisions on single things, and we're trying to connect the dots into this big system. And I think that's where a lot of the concerns come up.
Agreed.
I full-heartedly agree with what you're saying. I think we need that strong vision and to be able to then figure out how we want to pivot with these decisions. And what the other thing I would say to tack on to that is the reason from a ratio standpoint, this is taking up a larger financial aspect of our budget is because the township is no longer supporting the bus system and it's fully on the DDA to make that decision. That was a choice that was made. And I'm not here to dispute it or give a sharp left hook or right hook with it. It's just, that's the fact of the matter. But I think we need to look at the decision as, are we trying to keep this as an open avenue for us until and keep the bus service going, avoid any deterioration of our local economy, and then by keeping potentially the bus service going, and then buy ourselves time until we understand fully what the vision is and how the bus service plays into that vision. So we understand all the pieces as they start moving forward. I do believe the short-term decision we're making with the bus service is, hey, in the lack of having it, would we potentially, like the Plaza Hotel, would that potentially sink them during these tough economic times to find people to work it and what have you? And then we've got a large vacancy on our hand
Oh, sorry.
too. And that's one of many.
I think the board put the DDA in a totally, I think it was really unfair. We'll wait just to pass the buck to put it on the DDA's shoulders, but so I'll take that hook for you or for it. It's a bad precedent to set too. Make the decision instead of just pushing it onto us. I think it was I think it was not fair to the DDA at all.
Well, it's not to say that the township won't reconsider its position in the future, depending on what decisions we make and what options we're given. So who knows? Rick?
Short term, I do believe that we need to continue with the bus service. But going forward, I think we need to decide and look at our overall budget and saying what percent are we willing to commit to this? Right now, we're committing 20% of our budget to the bus service. And I think that's a very high percent to be committed to that. And so I think going forward, we're going to have to say 10, 15, 18%. That's what we're willing to commit because we have other projects. Now, if this is for Sandra, it's my understanding we have to spend so much of our budget each year, else we have to give part of it back. Is that correct?
We don't have to spend a certain amount every year, but the state does not like to see us just build a bank account, if you will. So we have to continually, spend the money that we are capturing.
Okay, it was a misconception on my part then.
So is that over a longer period of time though? So for instance, if there are some larger projects that, need substantial funding that, you can't define that in, let's say, a 1 year period. So how do they look at that?
Yeah,
Right.
Michelle, that's exactly it. So really what the DDA is going to want to do is if you continue to accumulate money, but you have it for a specific purpose, you're actually going to want to commit that money by resolution. So at the end of the fiscal year, say your fund balance is $2 million, but you have so you are going to buy the Chow Hound building and redevelop it. And that's a $4 million project. You can actually by resolution say, okay, we have $2 million fund balance, but that fund balance is committed towards X project. And then when you have the state or the other taxing jurisdictions that come through, you can say, no, that's not a slush fund. That is going towards a project. And that's typically going to satisfy at least the state.
So that means we should really have a strategic plan of our own in terms of those longer range things and how those fit in with, again, the big umbrella, so that we can make those resolutions, and really have plans in place to move forward on those things. And then future vision of how we support other things, like whether it's bus service or some other things that could come up.
And we
So-
do have our TIP plan and, oh, go ahead, Ben.
Yep, I was going to say that. So not only should you have that, but you're actually required by law to have that. That's what the DDA TIF plan is. And remember, you're only allowed to do projects that can be related back to that TIF plan. So, you know, at some point, because you guys are capturing money at a faster rate that was anticipated in that TIF plan, the DDA is probably going to have to go back and amend that plan to, you know, remove the projects that were looked at and aren't going to happen, or add projects in that you guys have high hopes for.
Have we ever hired a
Um,
consulting firm to look to do something, who does this kind
TIP
of thing?
plans?
We've hired a
Sandra.
consulting firm for updates to our TIF plan.
No, I'm talking, yeah, I mean like, public-private partnership type things, like, advanced level projects, just cool things.
We have not.
I mean, I guess another, and again, rules and regulations as a DDA board, we meet once a month, you know, for an hour and a half, and we're making decisions. Are we able to sit back and meet and actually brainstorm as a group? It's always fun. You can hire consultants and do all those things, but just start at a very core level as a team. If there's further discussions we need to have, I guess, you know, I think this is another agenda topic, but I just, you know, we're very quick to hire agendas or to hire consultants, and then we keep on just making decisions after decisions, as opposed to really having a good open discussion as a board.
Well, and I think that it's a good point to, you know, maybe add an agenda item in the future to talk about that issue. But typically where we have side projects like that, you know, whether it be the bus or the community gathering space or the Metro cruise, I mean, there have been separate committees to basically flesh out some of that brainstorming so that it's not something that's done during the board meetings here, but rather those committees come up with the ideas, report to the board, and then the board can make the decision. So that let's add that item to a future agenda, and then we can identify people who might be interested in taking those conversations offline to explore them further. So I'm going to bring us back around to Article 5, which is discuss and consider the rapid bus contract. Any other comments relating to that agenda item or questions while we
Yes.
have Nick? Yes.
Ben, has the township explored getting the federal grants for the bus system? Is there such a thing for that?
So there are communities that have their own small service bus programs. In fact, I was a manager in a community, though the bus system closed before I became the manager, that had its own bus system for a long time. So those federal grants are available. I don't know enough about them to tell you what the township would have to do to explore them, but it would be more than just buying a bus to circulate around the DDA. It would have to be a full-fledged small bus system.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about the township running their own bus system, but to get bus system from, you know, Woodland Mall to a more of a urban residential community. Does federal grants help that potentially?
So it
To
actually does.
subsidize it.
Yeah, so it actually does now as well. So 30, Nick, I don't know if you have this number exactly with you, but 32 or 33% of the bus service that we have right now is actually paid for federal grants as well. The Rapid just collects them instead of the township.
Yeah. So the operating side, there's the capital side, which we all get from the feds, with some limitations on how we can spend that. We can't spend that on operating, but to Ben's point, just above 30% is subsidized by the state of Michigan for our operating cost. So we pass that along to our partners as well. because of our
Other
designation as a public act, 196 transit agency.
Other questions or comments relating to the rapid bus contract?
Do we put up those option with a motion? Can we look at the reduced schedule on today on the vote or no?
Well, I don't know that there's really anything to vote on yet today. I mean, unless you have a
right.
particular motion you'd like to make. I mean, we don't have that, those figures haven't yet been finalized, so there's really nothing concrete to move.
That
We'll
makes it
send all
easier.
that information out by the end of the week for your review. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Jennifer, I just
All right,
want to note
thanks so
that
much. Go
I
ahead.
just want to note that I won't be on the rest of the meeting tonight, but if any of the board members have any questions in the meantime, or think of something that they want us to research before the next meeting, just reach out to either me or Sandra. We'll make sure we get that information to you ASAP.
Got it. Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
You as well.
Thank you for your time,
All right.
gentlemen.
Moving on to Article 6, which is to discuss and consider the interlocal agreement to use tax increment revenues for the Robinson Dental Brownfield redevelopment project. This is a fun one. Yes, Sandra.
I'm sorry, can we go back to Article 5 for a minute?
Yes.
Did we table that
Oh, sorry.
item or did? What?
Did we have it set up for a vote? Yes, I believe. I'll move
Yeah.
that we table the rapid bus contract consideration. And I believe that Rick seconded. All in favor? Aye. Oppose?
Aye.
Did someone oppose or was that a late aye? I think that was a late aye. Abstentions? All right, the bus contract issue is tabled to our June meeting. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Moving on now to the very entertaining interlocal agreement to use tax increment revenues for the Robinson Dental Brownfield redevelopment project. This was a late addition to the packet. So Sandra, why don't you kind of give the background and let us know what decision you need from us today regarding this issue.
Okay, thank you. So this is an interlocal agreement. I guess I'll just back up for a minute. The Brownfield grant loan application. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority is the applicant for that Eagle grant and loan. And this is for the cleanup of the Robinson Dental site. And, because of the Brownfield, typically, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority and the Township Board meetings, they approve the majority of the agreements and documents and plans and so forth for this project. But this interlocal agreement falls on the DDA because this project is located in the DDA district. And so basically what this agreement says is that the DDA agrees to give up their TIF capture for this property for the duration of the Brownfield plan. And the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority then, instead of the DDA capturing the TIF increment revenue, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority would capture that money. And then that money, the TIF capture, is then used to reimburse the developer for any type of eligible brownfield activities which support the project. And then once that developer is reimbursed, then the DDA will again start to capture all incremental taxes for that property. I know that's kind of a lot of information. I hope it makes sense. So it's anticipated that this project, the Brownfield plan, will be initiated in 2022, and then it remains active until all those activities and loans are paid off, which typically should be no more than 15 years. I think they might have spelled out 13 years in the Brownfield plan, but no more than 15 years following the implementation of that loan. So I know there was a interlocal agreement in the packet on Friday. Our attorney from Foster Swift did review the interlocal agreement. He got that back to me today. And again, I sent that out later this afternoon, so I apologize for the lateness of that, but that is, well, like I said, that was emailed to you with his comments and potential changes. I sent 2 files, one showing what their markups were, basically what they were, eliminating and replacing it with, and then I sent you a clean copy as well. So really, it really has to be done in order for the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board to capture that TIF financing to pay the developer back for the loan. This is a very normal thing that happens with these types of projects.
So my only question
what is
about
the
this.
cost?
Oh, go ahead.
Nope. You go ahead.
Are you asking us to approve the deferral of tax increment revenues, or are you asking us to approve the document?
So you need to approve the agreement, which talks about deferring the tax increment, the DDA capturing the tax increment revenue for the duration of the Brownfield plan. So that's spelled out.
Right. My concern with that is that there are some suggestions in the comments that perhaps the agreement is not final or needs to be changed.
So we are at the Township Board next week at their board meeting on May 26th. We will be holding a public hearing for the Brownfield plan. So when that Brownfield plan is approved, we'll have to include that in this interlocal agreement, basically that it was approved and when it was approved and so forth.
Okay.
So you would,
Rick, what was your question?
What is the cost to the DDA? And also, where is this 5749 28th Street?
so this project is located, it's actually, we kind of refer to it as 27th Street every now and again. It is the property behind Goodwill and in front of Tenaz. So between Goodwill and Tenaz, there is a vacant piece of property there. And that is where Robinson Dental will be constructing their building.
Okay, with brownfield development, is there some cleanup involved? I thought it was my understanding that there's like toxic waste or something like that that usually is associated with this.
That is correct. There's some contaminants on the site that will have to be cleaned up, which is what the grant and the loan are for, to help with those costs.
So is it just for the cleanup, or is it actually some of it is for the actual building too?
The cleanup and redevelopment of the site.
What is redevelopment of the site specifically?
That is a great question. Let me pull up the plan here.
Seems like it could be a huge, small.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's fine by statute.
Yeah, the Brownfield plan is pretty, from what I understand, having never done one before, but it's kind of set by the state as far as what is included in that plan. Sorry, let me find it here for you.
So
okay.
Sandra, maybe I can fill in, just because I've been in these meetings where there basically are, they have to develop, or they're in the process of developing a work plan. And even in the Brownfield plan, it's very specific about what is going to be done. And if I looked at all of those line items, it's basically taking away all of the construction rubble that was discarded on the site, removing a lot of fill dirt that they dump there. And then they have to scrape, I don't know how much, to get rid of some of the contaminants that are there, and then replace it with basically clean,
Right. It's also
or soil, so that it's not contaminated anymore. But that's all. It doesn't cover any cost of construction or anything like that with the building.
transportation costs, phase 1 and phase 2 environmental, baseline assessments, is included in that as well. Soil transport, there's a contingency in there. So yes,
So their reimbursement is just for basically the cleanup costs and other fees associated
Right,
with it,
for-
not the cost of construction or anything like that.
right.
Okay,
Other questions?
What hap-
Comments?
What happens if the DDA, not saying that we should do this, but if we voted no on this, does that scrap essentially the entire project on their end?
I believe it would, yes.
Should we have done
I-
this before they got, I mean, I assume it's not a controversial issue, but is this the right part in the process to do it? Because it seems like if I were the developer and the owners, I'd want to know before, I'd want to have the green light.
Right. Perhaps we should have done it a month or so ago. I think, unfortunately, with everything happening, it was kind of, Susan sent this to me, 3 or 4 weeks ago and said, oh, we need to put this on your next, DDA agenda. So it certainly isn't too late to do it. Could it have been done earlier? Absolutely.
And if we didn't do it, is naturally by default, does the DDA round in collect, DDA gets first access to those funds? Is that right or no? I guess because we're voluntarily deferring them.
So you're saying if you don't approve this tonight, will the DDA get the tax increment financing?
I'm just saying in general, I guess essentially we're saying, go ahead and have it. We'll stop taking it for a while, right? We'll stop taking that cream off the top and tax revenue.
Right.
And,
Yes.
and so to voluntarily allow that BRA to do that. So I guess my question is, presumably we're first in line and then we are able to defer to the BR, like we're first in line and we give it up to them.
So if there was not a brownfield on this property and somebody just developed it, the DDA would capture that tax increment financing.
And if there is a brownfield, DDA captures it unless it voluntarily gives it up.
Yeah, so then when the brownfield project is located in the DDA district, there has to be this interlocal agreement that says the DDA agrees to give up that tax increment financing for the number of years that the brownfield plan is in place, for the brownfield to capture that to reimburse the developer. So, and then once they're paid off, the DDA will begin to capture that tax increment financing again.
Seems like they're really far along in the project. I know this is our first one, but if I was the developer, I'd want to know that this wasn't an issue. Right?
To be fair, this was on we discussed this as a DDA. Oh my God, I don't even remember. I remember it being on a computer, so it had to be within the last year, but Roman came and spoke with all of us about the project and about brownfield redevelopment in general. So it's been on our radar. I'm not aware that we approved the project, but we were aware that it was going on. So
the other part is they had to submit to even find out whether they could get the financing approved.
Yeah, that's
So
true, Michelle.
If it hadn't been approved, I mean, there would be no point in bringing it up to this board. So
Yeah.
I think my 2 cents is that we have a swatch of property that needs to be cleaned up within the township. We have a developer and an opportunity to get that site cleaned up, to put a viable business in that corridor, and to where I think long-term could help the community. Right now, it's not being utilized and it requires cleaning up. So I don't see a downside in us, or I don't know what the dollar amount that we are giving up, but the property is not giving the community currently any benefit at all. So it feels like this is like one of those no-brainer decisions that it's only going to enhance the community. Why wouldn't we want this cleaned up and to get a great, get development in that space?
Agreed.
So
I'll do a motion to
approximately.
support it.
Why don't I make a motion unless there's further comments? I'll move that we approve the interlocal agreement subject to updates required upon township board approval of the brownfield plan.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion carries.
All right, thank you.
And moving on then to Article 7, discuss plantings around new streetlights.
Grace, do you want me to tackle this or would you like to get into this one?
Oh, you can do it. You know more
Okay.
background.
So
Thanks.
the owner of Daylily Floral reached out to Grace regarding the new streetlights that we just placed in the DDA district along Cascade Road corridor from about 28th Street to the Cascade Hospital for Animals. And she was interested in perhaps adding some plantings or some flower pots to the area. She said she would be happy to come up with a design, a price quote, and also mentioned that potentially those could be some type of year-round plantings. And so today we did receive and I sent that out later this afternoon. There was a map that she had put together with the red dots showing where potentially, her thoughts on plantings and or pots in the district, village area. So we just need to, I guess she's looking for some feedback on if this is something we are interested in. And, if you would like her to provide some type of design and or quote for this project.
Would she be charging us to give us the quote? Or to develop the quote, or would that be something she'd provide free of charge?
I have not had that conversation with her yet. I have not been down there to talk to her yet about this. So I guess I wanted some direction from the DDA before I went down there to talk to her.
I talked to her about it and it was my
Okay.
understanding that, I don't think so, but before she went too far into it, she was kind of excited and thought it could look really nice, but had ideas. But before she got real specific, she wanted to feel us out. She did say she'd use local nurseries to the extent possible. But I don't think she's not charging for design.
We
Oh,
currently,
I mean,
we currently
Go
have
ahead, Sandra.
we currently have some planters down in the village area at Cascade Road and Thornapple River Drive on each side of the road there. There's 4, I believe, near the gathering place. There's 3 on the other side by the museum. And then we have some pots also along Old 28th Street near Cascade Road. And so those pots are irrigated. Those have irrigation that run right up into those pots for those flowers and plantings. So really anywhere else, part of the discussion would certainly be, irrigation. We have irrigation in a couple of the medians on 28th Street at Cascade Road and then Old 28th Street and Cascade Road. But as far as, the right-of-way areas, if you will, the township does not irrigate those areas. That really, if there's irrigation out there, that is put there by the businesses in that area. So that's something we'd have to consider. The other thing would be,
Sandra, who does the existing pots?
so our buildings and grounds department plants those and maintains those.
I asked her if she said,
I guess it's hard for me to consider the proposal without knowing a price parameter, which is why I asked the question of whether she would charge us to give us the quote. I mean, if I'm happy to entertain it, but knowing the difference between $5,000 and $50,000, you know, makes a big difference in my mind. So I'm certainly in favor of pursuing more information from her about it and discussing some of these issues, and then teeing it up on an agenda for a future meeting when you have some more specifics.
Are these hanging plants on the light posts, or are they just a pot?
She thought because of irrigation, it would be, initially she suggested each lantern, but she said because of, it was probably easiest to do pots on the ground and not as many as there are lanterns. But her goal was, Buildings and Grounds does it. They say they don't really know how to, design wise isn't their thing. So a lot of times they have a summer intern do it. And what she had said is like, we could go just really make it pop with height and color if there's a water source. And I asked if we could compete with East Grand Rapids and Ada's, and she thought we could beat them. So.
And we just have to look at locations, you know, one, if the road commission will allow us to put those in the road right of way. And, you know, if not, we'd have to get some private easements from property owners to potentially place those pots as well. So there.
I guess the other question that I have too is if she's looking at doing it this year and we're just getting a proposal potentially at our June meeting, is that kind of too late in the planning season for flower pots to go out there? I mean, now you're going to be talking July and the thick of the summer and the heat and everything. So I just throw that out as a thought. I think it's great to fill up the streets with color. I just don't know from a timing standpoint. But again, this is very preliminary for everything. So I just throw that out.
Right.
Did the
Like the
DDA buy
idea.
those pots?
We did buy those. Yes.
Do you know how many we have total?
We have approximately 10.
So can we ask her
I'd
to
like to
put
make a
some?
comment.
Michelle, then
My
Rick.
comment, go ahead.
It's all coming in spotty.
So can we ask her to put some more information together to have maybe a more informed discussion at a later meeting? Because I think there's a lot of pieces that, like irrigation and, you know, easement and all of that sort of thing. So, I mean, I'd like to see if she wants to propose this, then what's her proposal?
Rick?
I'm all for this proposal. I think it's a great idea. I have a strange comment, but you want to make sure with this is a walking trail that the pots are high enough so dogs are not urinating on it, because male dogs will hike it and so destroy it. So if you don't make them high enough, it's going to be a problem.
Good.
Not strange at all coming from you.
Yeah.
Like Great Dane height?
Right.
I would, you know, think of a taller dog, because if they're only like 1.5 feet off the ground, the plants are going to get killed.
Yeah.
True story. All right, Sandra, does that give you a direction to head in gathering more information?
Yep, I'd be happy to go down and talk to her and get some additional information.
Terrific, thank you.
Mhm.
Lost my agenda. Let's see then. Next agenda item is to discuss and consider virtual or in-person or hybrid meetings. So Sandra,
So this is on
what's
the, yeah, this is
rule
on the
now?
last agenda as well. Really nothing has changed as far as dates or anything. Kent County still has that emergency order through June 30. So we could continue to do virtual. We could, you know, try the hybrids / you know, in person. It's really up to you guys.
I've personally had some mixed results with the hybrid meetings, and I don't know what technology the township is using to allow participation by virtual participants while people are also in person. Assuming those kinks are worked out, I don't have a problem with transitioning to hybrid. I would like to think that we will continue to offer that access to people to participate virtually, particularly people from the public, if they can't come in person for whatever reason. I think it's been nice to be able to allow people to participate virtually and see what's going on. How has this been going from the perspective of the board? I know that they've been doing hybrid meetings. Has that been working, or has it been a little glitchy?
It's been a little, I guess, in my opinion, and Grace can speak for it too, but I think it's been a little glitchy just with technology. Grace, do you want to?
Oh, I think that's going okay for board meetings. I don't know if we need to go that high. It's more complicated. I don't know if we need to do it at the DDA level, but board wise, I think it's going well. Not that it needs to go to the smaller committees, but.
Any thoughts or preferences on remaining virtual or starting to transition back to in-person?
And if you want, sorry to interrupt really quick, certainly we have our June 18th meeting before this emergency order expires. We can decide tonight for that June 18th meeting. And, you know, if Kent County doesn't renew, if you will, that emergency order, we will have to go back to in-person / hybrid anyway. So we can just tackle June 18 or June, sorry, I think it's June 20 is our meeting.
June 15.
Sorry, I'm just throwing dates out.
That's okay. It's been a long meeting. Selfishly, I would prefer that it remain virtual, just for, as I was explaining to Sandra, it's a little easier to be in two places at once when you can just jump from one screen to another. That said, if majority would prefer to move to hybrid or in person, I'm happy to adapt to that as well.
I make a motion to stay with virtual meetings for June.
I second that.
Okay, Scott, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. So we stay virtual. Fingers crossed that the world will return to normal and, you know, we'll be able to go back to virtual. But Sandra, I don't know what technology the township is using for its camera and its projection, but we can chat about it because we've had to make some changes internally at the firm to purchase some new gadgets to help us deal with that issue. So I can share our experience with you if you think it needs to be changed somehow.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
Let's see, any other business? Anything we haven't discussed? Sandra?
No, you mentioned June 15th is our next DDA meeting. And so hopefully that's on your calendar. We do have some new businesses that have opened in the township. Riva Salon has recently opened and they are on Thornapple River Drive. They're actually in the old, if you know where the Cascade Gallery was located, next to the Village Bike Shop. They recently opened down there. Everplay Cafe opened. They are in the strip center where the Gathering Place is, the restaurant. They have recently opened. The Cancer and Hematology Center purchased the building, kind of kitty corner from where we are now, right at the corner of Tahoe and Lucerne. So they are expanding. The Sheldon Cleaners building on the corner of Thornapple River Drive and Cascade Road is now a small IT office. So somebody has moved in there. I'm trying to think. I've talked to the Detroit Cookie Company is supposedly moving into the strip center where like Chop Smoothie is on the west of the interchange down by Bob Evans and so forth. And we've had I know the Planning Commission has been reviewing and talking to Tommy's Car Wash. It hasn't been approved yet, but they have made application to developed where the Pizza Hut property is. So we've had a little bit of activity in the district lately, so.
And Sandra, another place is Babies R Us has been
Yes.
is been filled with a
Total Wine.
larger retail wine retailer. So that was great to see that space get filled as well.
Yes, they have moved in there. That is correct. So.
We
Thank you.
wine lovers were fully aware of that development. Yeah. Any other business for anyone else? All right, hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Grace. And I saw Rick raise his hand. Are you seconding that
Second.
motion? He is.
Yes.
All in favor? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, very good. Motion carries. Thanks very much, everyone. This meeting is adjourned. Appreciate you taking the time. This was a longer meeting than usual, but we covered a lot of good topics.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Jennifer. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
If you guys have any additional questions that you want us to push forward to the Rapid, let Sandra know so that we can be sure to have a full set of information, because we will need to make a decision at our June meeting. Okay. All right. Real good. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
Thank you,
night.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.